This is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. So, today we're going to be talking about a topic that many people just don't like to discuss. The topic of not arguing. Now, I know most would say, well, that's not a topic that people try to avoid. But I tend to differ with that. It seems so many people feed off of controversy. They like seeing people argue or even being in arguments themselves. It seems many do so to defend their view and therefore trying to prove everyone else wrong. It's as if they use it to justify themselves or their views, meaning they have to argue to prove they're not wrong. Okay, because surely we're not wrong. No one's wrong, right? So they do all they can to rally the forces to get people to pat them on the back with likes to their comments or posts on Facebook. The more they can get people to rally to their cause, the more they feel justified. But let it be known, we're not going to be judged on how many people we get to rally to us in our beliefs. That's just not the case. Do we really think Yahweh looks down in approval when we gather people behind us with torches and pitchforks to do all we can to burn others at the stake on some public forum? Seriously? These actions and attempts do one thing and one thing only. They divide the body of Messiah. So what if someone has a theological error in their belief system? Are they trying to pursue the Father? If so, then He will straighten them out. He'll straighten them out when it's best for them. And do you really think your belief system has no errors whatsoever? Do you really think you can do a better job at changing their mind than the Holy Spirit? Do you really think arguing with them is going to soften their heart better than what the Holy Spirit can do and when He speaks to them? Well, let it be known. The more you argue with people, the more you're just pushing them away. And the enemy is just laughing at you the whole time. If you're truly concerned, truly concerned about these people, should you condemn them or pray for them? Imagine what could be done in the spiritual realm if you prayed for them all that time you spend arguing with them, cutting them down, trying to make a fool of them while trying to defend yourself all the while. Could you imagine? Think about this. Could you imagine all the spiritual breakthroughs that we could be seeing take place in this world right here, right now, if we prayed for people instead of arguing with them? Please think about this. But as it is, people want to argue instead. Arguing doesn't change hearts. It only hardens them. Stop trying to fight in the physical and get on your knees and start fighting in the spiritual. Everybody knows that's where the war's at, but so many want to ignore that fact. Why? I don't know. Evidently, prayer just doesn't give the gratification like a good old argument does, I guess. I don't know. My concern is too many people are more concerned about how they look to others instead of the people they're arguing with. Let me say that again. I'm concerned too many people are more concerned about how they look to others instead of the very people they're arguing with. Arguing only removes peace. It removes peace. Peace, the very thing Yeshua gives us. John 14. All this I have spoken while still with you. But the Counselor, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. So he gives us peace. But notice what he said just before that. He said the Holy Spirit would remind us of everything he said. Well, what was that? He just got done giving us the critical identification marker for us as disciples in the chapter right before. John 13. A new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Loving one another is what marks us as his disciples to everyone around us. Loving one another. Not cutting people down, not tearing people down, not proving people wrong in their theology, or trying to convince everyone that your view is right and their view is wrong. And the list can go on and on and on. Those are not the identification markers that prove that we're disciples of Yeshua. Ironically, what do we read just a little later? John 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. So tell me, do you really think you're remaining in him if you are cutting people down, trying to make a fool of them in front of others? You can claim you're doing it in love all you want, but you know you would not want someone trying to cut you down that way. Showing what? We should remain in him by doing what is said in Luke 6 that Yeshua said. Do to others as you would have them do to you. So if you don't want people disrespecting you in front of others, why do you do it? Wouldn't you want people praying for you if you are truly wrong on something? Of course you would. Then why not pray for others? The bottom line in all of this is Titus chapter 3. But avoid foolish controversies and genealogies and arguments and quarrels about the law, because these are unprofitable and useless. Warn a divisive person once, and then warn him a second time. After that, have nothing to do with him. You may be sure that such a man is warped and sinful. He is self-condemned. It seems this is a verse many need to be reminded of. If someone chooses to continue to be divisive and argumentative, here's what you're to do. It's right here. And for my brothers and sisters who believe the law is done away with, why would there have been foolish controversies about the law in the body at that time if the law was done away with? There wouldn't have been any. They wouldn't have even considered the law something to be discussed. And if it was truly a salvational issue for someone to be pursuing the law, Paul wouldn't have considered it a foolish controversy, as he said here in Titus. He would have said it was something detrimental or even destructive to one's salvation if the law was truly done away with. But he said they were foolish controversies. So why does he call them foolish controversies? Because as it was and is today, the law wasn't done away with. And so the topic of trying to see how we apply the law today, as it was back then, still continues to this day. Thus, controversies exist, but many refuse to walk in love despite seeing things differently. Remember, They couldn't follow all of the law in the New Testament just as we can't today. As I've said before, the feast days couldn't even be followed in the New Testament. That's right, they couldn't be followed back then. Yeshua himself couldn't even follow the commands to the feast days. That's right. The commands are to appear before the Father at those times, meaning the feast days, okay? But no one could appear before him because the presence rested on the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant was buried by Jeremiah just before the Babylonian invasion. Meaning what? Meaning the Ark was not in the temple during those days Yeshua walked there. It wasn't in that temple. It was buried. Thus, the many debates arising what they could and couldn't follow at that time. And today is just the same. It's no different. So you're seeing people back then and people today trying to figure out what can we follow, what can we not follow. The debates were all over the table, if you will. We can do this, we can't do that. Well, we can do this. They're trying to figure out how to please the Father. Just like you see people trying to do the same thing, trying to figure it all out. And chances are back then, as it was today, people were struggling with love in these debates. Oh, it makes me upset thinking about that because love is the foundation. Love is the very essence of how people will know we're his disciples. So please, don't say Yeshua fulfilled the law. The mere fact that he couldn't even keep the feast days according to the law proves that is a false understanding to his words in Matthew chapter 5. If you are truly interested, please see our teachings abolished. Or did Yeshua do away with the law? Or heaven and earth testify? Or any of our teachings on our Faith Foundations page. But to wrap this teaching up, humility is where it's at. It's time for all of us to get off our high horse and stop defending our views. Whether you're right or wrong, who cares? I mean that. We aren't known as his disciples because we have our doctrinal theology right. Or because we have this right or that right, we say this right or say that right, whatever. It doesn't matter where we're at. Are we pursuing him and trusting that he's going to lead us in him? You can have a huge following on Facebook. You can have a huge following on YouTube. You can have this and people saying, oh, you're right with that. And I'm sorry. That's not where it's at. That's not what we're going to be judged on. We're going to be judged if we're trying to pursue him in love, loving him and loving our neighbor as ourselves, the second greatest command. It's time to get on our knees to seek him in humility. Okay, I'll stop preaching. But please think about it. Pray about this. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, Shalom.